Hello, once again. Thanks for joining us. Luiz Lima here, broadcasting from Orlando, Florida. You are on Kardec Radio. This is our weekly program, Spiritism, a closer look. We do a different topic every week. We are here every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Tonight, we're going to take a closer look at what Allan Kardec calls the errant state. The errant state. This is part of the original codification. It's on the Spirit's book, on the second part, part 2, chapter 6. The name of the chapter is Spirit Life. And he's going to go at length about life as a spirit, meaning without a body, just a spirit. And that's where this thing fits. So, of course, the first question is, what is it? What does it mean, the errant state? And not only that, but several questions come with that. What's the purpose of this thing, and why should I even study that? So let's go through this. Instead of using the Spirit's book to get started, I'm going to use this little book here that you see. It's called Spiritism in its Simplest Expression. The name itself is very, very interesting. There's nothing simpler than this. See, this is a tiny, tiny book. It's about 50 pages. You can see by the size of my hand. It's a tiny book. It's a pocket book. And it contains the bare minimum about Spiritism. It's a great book for those, for newcomers, those who are, interested in getting to know Spiritism, those who have started, a few months ago maybe, and they need to know a little bit more. It's very straightforward. The language, the vocabulary is extremely simple, nothing complicated, and it's only 50 pages. So it's really interesting. And the way Allan Kardec wrote this, he wrote this almost like bullets, each bullet being one main idea. And he explains each one of them, but in short terms, in few words. Very, very, very objective book. So I'm going to read number 16, the idea under number 16, and we're going to make some comments. This is how it starts. In between its corporeal existences, the spirit is errant. So this is the first idea of this errant state. So the errant state for a spirit means the time, the interval between incarnations, when the spirit is not incarnated. Spirit discarnates, dies. It will go through a few things that we're going to discuss about today, and it will come back into a new physical life. The space between, the interval between these physical lives is called the errant state. So the spirit in this condition is called as an errant spirit. Okay? The errant state is also known as erraticity. Erraticity is also another name for it. Now, the errant state is not of a predetermined length of time. It's not like a certain number of days, a certain number of weeks, years, even centuries. No. The amount of time that the spirit is in the errant state, meaning discarnated, varies. Each case is different. There is no preset time. There's no one size fits all, nothing like this. Okay? Continue with the phrase. In it, meaning in the errant state, the spirit is either happy or unhappy, according to the good or bad use it made of its latest existence. That's very interesting. So nobody will make you happy or make you unhappy. It depends on how good or bad your last existence was. And it's free will. It's all about free will, and I am 100% responsible for my own conduct. And so is you. So is it. So are you. You are everybody. Everybody. We are all fully responsible for the way that we live our lives. So if we did good, we're going to be happy. If we didn't do very good, if we did bad use of my time here, I'm going to be unhappy. And so it's the same for everyone. So one thing ties into the other. So continuing with the text, it studies it, meaning the errant spirit. It studies the causes that sped up or slow down its evolution. So it's a time for reflection and analysis, if you will, where the spirit is like going to stop. Hold on, let me see what I did here. It's a self-learning process by looking back into what we did. The spirit again did good, it's going to be happy. If it didn't do good, if it did bad, it's going to be unhappy, and it will analyze its present situation in the spirit world after discarnation. So there's no vacation. This is no vacation. It's time for reflection. It's time to make good use of the opportunity of being discarnated, to learn from our mistakes, to review our lives, to just think about it. It's a process. It's an analytical process that's going to make us see what we should do, or feel and see what we should do differently, what we should do the same, areas we should improve, areas we are already very good. It's a process, but it's no vacation. We need to make good use of that timing, that opportunity. And the text goes on. The errant spirit makes resolutions within the time that it's discarnate. It makes resolutions that it will seek to put into practice during its next incarnation. So again, it will analyze everything, and again, responsibility is at the top of everything. It's the spirit itself, not everybody else making this analysis. It's a self-analysis, self-learning process. With that comes responsibility. I did this, I'm responsible for doing this bad thing or even this good thing. It's all me. And it comes from learning. It's a process. It comes from learning from past mistakes. So the spirit will plan, make resolutions for its next incarnation based on its last incarnation. So I have to, be better on this particular thing. I need to adjust my behavior here and there. That's what this time, this opportunity, the erraticity is. That's the purpose of it. And the phrase wraps up by saying, the errant spirit will also choose for itself the trials that it believes will be the most beneficial for its advancement. This is very interesting. There is nobody telling you what to do. You are going to look into your past life after you discarnate in the errant state. You're going to look at it and you're going to see, I need to improve here. So this is what I need for my next incarnation. I need to overcome this thing. So I need to undergo this particular situation. So we will plan our next life. We'll plan the trials that we believe are going to be most beneficial for our advancement. Look at this, most beneficial. Nobody said anything about an easy path or an easy way out. No, most beneficial, something that is going to be good for myself, something that I'm going to plan on to improve. It's not about an easy, easy path. That's not what it is. It's about moral improvement. So I'm going to pick I'm going to design, we're going to be architects of our next lives. We're going to design situations for our next life. And this is what I need. These are the trials I should be going through on my next life so I can improve. And again, it's all on us. It's all on us. Nobody's going to be, there's no divine decree saying this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen in your next life. In the first year, this is going to take place. When you are 6 years old, that's going to take place. No such a thing. Now, with this in mind, this idea that once we cross over to the other side and we discarnate, we are going to go through this analytical process about ourselves. With this in mind, I want to call you the attention for this book, Heaven and Hell, which is also one of the 5 books in the codification written by Allan Kardec. This is a very interesting book. It's divided in 2 parts. The first part, Allan Kardec is going to revisit classic concepts in different religions, especially Christianity. So, and he's going to have to make adjustments to those concepts. They're going to get new meaning. So things like even God is one of them. God, suffering, pain, heaven, hell, demons, angels, all of these things will get new meanings, because that's the meaning Spiritism teaches. And this is the first part of the book, and he does that on the first part because these new concepts are going to be used to understand the second part. And the second part is even more interesting because it contains transcripts of dialogues in mediumistic meetings. So spirits of all sorts of types showed up in the mediumistic meetings where Allan Kardec was part of, and his team. They were part of, and they wrote down, they transcribed this on paper as this thing was happening. They wrote down everything, what both parties were saying, the spirit discarnate and those incarnated dialoguing here through the medium. And so he compiled a lot of these transcripts, and he selected, some of them. Otherwise, it wouldn't even fit on several books. It would be a huge, huge, huge collection because these meetings happened every week, and they still do in several spiritist centers. Anyhow, so he compiled this whole list of interesting dialogues to be published that he wanted to transcribe and publish. And he arranged them by the type of spirit that showed up. So, for example, happy spirits. So there are several testimonies from these happy spirits telling us what they went through when they died, what happened to them when they got to the other side, and they realized they had had a good life, they didn't make any mistakes, and they were really happy as a consequence of their last life, their last incarnation. So happy spirits is one of the subtopics. Average spirits is another one. So, just spirits that are average, not suffering, not very happy, just average. A third group, suffering spirits, and that's intense. When you look at those, when you read through, some of the spirits they have been discarnated for years, centuries, some of them, and they are still suffering for the same reasons they suffered when they were incarnated. So they didn't make a good use, or they made bad use of their opportunity on last life, and they are, suffering the consequences. Also, suicide spirits. They come back to tell us, what they went through, what they are going through now as discarnate spirits. Another section, repentant criminals, which is very interesting too. And another section, hardened spirits, hardened, very cold spirits, very unemotional spirits. And finally, earthly expiations. So when you read through these things, we become really aware of what could happen to us if we are not making good use of our opportunity here. There's going to be suffering. We have people telling, we have spirits that have gone through this telling us. There's no reason not to believe them. So, Allan Kardec, in the same book here, Spiritism in its simplest expression, on the next line, he publishes something about guilty spirits. What is a guilty spirit in this sense? It's a spirit that discarnates, dies, and they kind of put their two hands on their heads and say, oh my God, what did I do? I didn't do it right. So they feel guilty. That's what these guilty spirits are. And Allan Kardec is going to tell us the guilty spirit is punished by mental suffering in the spirit world and by physical suffering during corporeal life. Now, you see, this suffering is not imposed by anyone. It's not a decree that came down from heaven and say, you are supposed to suffer. No, it's you yourself. That happens to us during our lives. Sometimes we do something wrong, and for a day, two, maybe a week or so, we suffer because we know we did something wrong. Oh my God, I did this thing. And then it comes back a couple hours later. Oh my God, I did this thing. It happens to us. Of course, for most of us, it's not suffering that impedes us from living. But when you discarnate and you have right in front of you the idea of an entire life, entire lost opportunity, that's a huge, huge, huge self-punishment. The phrase continues, its afflictions, its meaning the guilty spirit, right? Its afflictions are the result of its wrongs, that is, transgressions of God's law. Okay, so how do I know if I commit some sort of transgression of God's law? How do I even know if I'm about to commit that? Well, Spirit's book has the answer. The law is in our consciousness. It's our conscious. Question 621. So we know, the Spirit knows what the law is. And he knows that to every action, there's a reaction. It's going to come back somehow. We're going to have to offset our wrongdoings. I don't like to use the word pay for the wrongdoings because that brings the idea of an eye for an eye. That's not really what it is. We're going to have to offset somehow the transgressions of God's laws. And the phrase continues. They, guilty spirits, they are therefore at one and the same time an expiation of its past and a trial for its future. So these things, these afflictions, they are at the same time two things. They do two things at a time. Expiations of the past and trials for the future. You see, expiations, they're here for us to offset something that happened and we did wrong. And trials are here or will be here at one point in our lives so we can prove to ourselves that we were able to overcome a certain thing that we already learned. So this thing I already learned, that's it. It's like a test in a school, right? You go to all the classes and everything. The teacher is going to give you a test at the end of the course. And the reason for that is for you to prove to yourself that you learned it. That's more or less the same thing. And finally, the text goes like this. Thus, it is that the once proud spirit may have to live a life of humiliation. So things change place. The tyrant spirit might have to live a life of servitude. And the greedy spirit might have to live a life of want. So depending on how we did on our incarnation, if we made bad use of our timing, we are taking the risk of changing places. So we are going to be the ones on the other side of the table. So I did evil towards a lot of people. So on my next life, I'm going to be living, as we say in common language, my life is going to be a living hell. Because it's the law of cause and effect, action and reaction. So there's several interesting things, questions in the Spirit's book. Like I said, chapter 6 of part 2. And I'm just going to address some of them here. So just don't forget, the errant state or erraticity is not vacation. It's just, life as a spirit without a body. And when that happens, the spirits, they retain their passions. That's why they suffer, because they take their passions to the other side, and they look at their lives and they go like, oh, I blew it. Or not, hopefully not. So let's take a look at this question, Spirit's Book 225. I'm not going to read the question and the answer, but this is a general idea. What kind of spirit goes to the errant state? Good spirits, bad spirits, all? What kind of spirits go to the errant state? Here's the answer. Except for pure spirits, all other orders will be in errant state. So in errant state, you're going to find spirits that are relatively advanced or really advanced, not pure though, really advanced. Also, you're going to find spirits that are in the very bottom of the spirit scale. Impure spirits, frivolous spirits, they all go to the errant state because they all have to go through the same process. Look back at their lives, understand what was done right, what was done wrong, what can be done better, plan for next life, and so everything that we just discussed. Now, pure spirits do not go to errant state because they don't need a temporary state. Their state is definitive. They already reached relative perfection. That's it. They don't have to, well, let me see what I did last life. There's no need for that. So, summarizing, Allan Kardec tells us this. Regarding their state as spirits, they may be of 3 types. Type number 1, incarnate. Incarnate spirit, of course, there's a body attached to, they are connected to a body. Number 2, errant. An errant spirit, meaning disconnected from the material body. However, they are awaiting a new incarnation in order to improve themselves. They are awaiting, planning, and awaiting for another opportunity to improve themselves. Again, While they are waiting, they are not on vacation. They are planning, working hard, understanding their past. Learning is a self-learning process. It needs a lot of knowledge. Knowledge has to improve. And third, so incarnate spirits, errant spirits. Third, pure spirits. They have perfected and have no further need for any incarnation. They don't need to incarnate. They do as a mission when necessary, but they don't need to. They've reached perfection. Now, one thing to wrap up. In the errant state, right? Errant state, discarnate, a spirit may improve or progress a great deal. However, it puts its newly acquired ideas into practice only during corporeal life. Thus, the need for another incarnation. You see, you can read, let's just say, a recipe. You can read as many times as you want a recipe. You can look at somebody making it happen on YouTube. You see the video. The person is doing this and this and this and this, and you know it by heart at a certain point, and you go, "Okay, I know how to do it." No, you don't. You can only say this once you actually go to the kitchen, get the ingredients, get all the material necessary, and make it happen. Studying, knowing, getting to know is not what makes you actually grow. What makes you grow is learning how to do it, but being able to do it, putting in practice. So this is a very interesting phrase. I'm going to read that again, or at least the idea. I'm not going to say a phrase, but the idea. In errant state, a spirit may improve or progress a great deal. However, it puts its newly acquired ideas into practice only during corporeal life. So we all need opportunities. We all need another corporeal life, another incarnation to improve. And once we are incarnated, we should not waste the incarnation. We should not. We should concentrate on doing everything right and everything as good as we can. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. And once again, Spiritism A Closer Look is here on Kardec Radio every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So thank you very much for joining us. We will see you next time.